All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Word on the Street, which is J Street's video interview series with people who are making and covering the news that relates to Israel, the Middle East, American politics. These are live interviews that we make available to our top supporters, both higher level donors to J Street, but also sustaining contributors who are monthly donors. And I am very grateful to everybody who is joining us for your support. We've done some great conversations over the last year with folks like Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi and former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, some leading American thought leaders like Nick Kristof and Susan Glasser. So it's really been a great mix of conversations. And we've also expanded recently the Word on the Street umbrella to include a new weekly column on Substack. And we're going to be growing the different types of voices and people who are providing commentary on the Substack. And so I urge you, if you haven't, please do subscribe. I think Nate's going to drop a link into the chat. And you should also be able to find going forward recordings of these Word on the Street conversations, which will be posted on the Substack page as well. So if you have missed one and want to catch up, they're going to be there as well. These are intended to be less formal, more conversational. I want to include all of you who are live with us in the conversation. So please do put questions into the Q&A, and I'll look to feed them into the conversation. Today, I am really pleased to welcome onto Word on the Street former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. Harry joined the U.S. Capitol Police in 2008, and we all know that in 2021, on January 6th, he was one of the folks who bravely was protecting not just the Capitol, but really our country and our democracy from the insurrectionists who were really looking to overturn, not just the election, but really much more than that, our fundamental democratic structure. Following the attack, you were one of the few people, Harry, who actually really did step forward publicly to talk about what happened that day and testify in front of the committee. And you then translated that into running for Congress in Maryland, and you're an author, you're a patriot of the First Order, and you really do have a voice, I am sure, in our nation's future. So thank you for joining us, and would love to get started by having you just tell us a little bit about your personal story and introduce us to yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I truly appreciate this opportunity to get and talk with you and a lot of your group, your organization, your subscribers. Um, you know, and I just love this opportunity to I will say I'm humbled by any opportunity that anybody wants to hear what I have to say. I do a lot of rambling and I just do a lot of talking. Sometimes it's to a brick wall, but anytime people want to hear what I have to say, I don't take that lightly and I take it like, thank you so much. So with that, obviously, my name's Harry Dunn. People know me as, the officer from January 6th. I was a police officer for 12, 13 years before January 6th. And I took pride in my job. And, I believe in service to people, service to communities, service to country. And that's why I became a police officer. And, even before January 6th, there was a lot of, and still is, contention towards police and the way, obviously with the what happened in Ferguson and what happened with in Minnesota and all across the country of these videos of George Floyd of and the policing culture just took a lot of like wallops. And I just always saw that as an opportunity to improve, not just, remain the status quo. So if there's an outcry about something, it's I always believe in, all right, let's take this opportunity to fix it. Now I'm getting all off track now. I'm supposed to be telling you, but this is one of the things that made me, one of the things I did as an officer. So when everybody was protesting police, I said, all right, how can I make this better? So I became a training officer to train the newer generation of officers coming in. And I think before I left the department, ultimately in December of 2023, I had trained close to about 200 officers. So, just meeting that moment. But as for my work on January 6th, listen, a lot of people say that we're heroes and we saved democracy. And I can tell you, I'd probably bet my house that if you ask any officer, hey, were we trying to save democracy that day? The answer would be no. We were trying to survive and protect people, which our job was to protect members of Congress. Now,
Right.
a byproduct of what happened that day, if that happened to be saving democracy, then I'll take it. It wasn't my goal, but it's a heck of a byproduct. Um, and but we were just doing our job protecting each other. It didn't matter Republican, Democrat, man, woman, liberal, conservative, extremist, didn't matter. It was just about doing our job. One of the most disheartening things since then, one of them, because there've been several, but one of the most disheartening things has been the people that we saved that day, denying what we went through, denying what happened, refusing to acknowledge our service, and specifically the officers who have spoken out, myself, Daniel Hodges, Michael Fanone, Aquilino Ganell, specifically us, we've been targeted as pawns and puppets for the left, and it's kind of crazy when they actually say that, because all four of us, I think, are very, very different politically, political leanings, but that's the kind of odd thing about it. But it just shows that when people are bonded together and something, how tight a relationship could be. We've been fighting this fight for 4 years, Jeremy. It's been 4 years, and it still feels like yesterday. And as long as people are out there downplaying, minimizing, um, and hell, to be frank, setting the groundwork for it to happen again, I'm still going to be on these front lines pushing back going forward.
So tell us though a little bit more about yourself personally. I mean, and what led you into public service? What made you committed to this kind of work? Where did you grow up? I understand it was nearby in
Yeah.
Prince George's County. And so, tell us a little bit more personally.
Yeah, personally, so I'm a Prince George's County born and raised
Yeah.
kid. I was born on Andrews Air Force Base. I grew up in Clinton, Maryland. I my first job was a bagger at the commissary on the military base, bagging groceries. Um, my mother, my father have been married. They got married on Christmas Eve. And they've been married for, what am I, 42 years. And they raised me right. I have four sisters. The only boy. I have
Uh-oh.
I have a daughter. So I am literally I am pro woman. I'm surrounded by them, and I believe that women have it shaped my life, and they are effective in getting stuff done. Actually, fun fact: when I ran for Congress, my first three or four, five hires were women. It was just like so it kind of was like, wait, I hired a guy. Oh gosh, but this is just me, just being surrounded by women, seeing the power that they have, the effectiveness that they have. But it's just been great, just having them, my family, as a support system. Where did I get this patriotism from, or whatever? My father, like I said, my father was in the Air Force. He served his country to 25 plus years in the Air Force. He served overseas, served abroad. Um, and just seeing that growing up, and I played boys and girls club basketball on the military bases, and just being around the culture of yes sir, no sir. Even as a kid, like, none of my friends really called their parents like sir and ma'am, but we I called my dad yes sir when we would talk, and it was instilled in me, I guess, at a young age, just like respect, discipline kind of thing. And then I played football at James Madison University. I played on the 2004 national championship football team. Um,
Did not know that. All right.
yeah, 2004 national champion. And I was an offensive lineman. Surprise, surprise. Everybody said, "Well, you weren't the kicker?" Like, no, I was I was I was an offensive lineman there. And one of the things, um, people that know football, the offensive linemen are a lot of times the underlooked, underappreciated people that actually get the work done. Offensive linemen can walk into a space and nobody will know who that guy is. But the quarterback or the wide receiver or the running back, everybody knows who they are, and they are, but belong, and I believed in belonging to a thing, a group that was bigger than you as an individual, being part of something bigger than yourself, I think is kind of just helped me shape who I am, the man that you see in front of you today.
So I would say I think after watching the Eagles Super Bowl and their run, that I
Yeah.
think the appreciation for the offensive line has nationally has probably gone up.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know what? And
Not-
that's what it takes though. It takes
yeah,
somebody to actually appreciate,
yeah,
oh, this is what makes it go. So now every other team, I guarantee, is going to be like, yo, let's bump up our offensive line
exactly,
because they
exactly.
realize the importance of it.
Yeah. So yeah, I knew that there was some connection. I didn't realize your father was in the Air Force for 25 years, and I knew there was a public service background and that those sort of values really were instilled in you. And I'm curious, I worked in the government for 10, 15 years myself at the state, at the local and federal level. And one of the things that is just really so disturbing about this particular moment in time is the attack on public service, right? I mean, I grew up in an environment where the noblest thing you could possibly do, was to work for the public good, and to do it in the public service. And,
Yeah.
the generation that created an agency like the Agency for International Development, they were inspired by John F. Kennedy's words, and this notion that you were going to be doing this, because we have a place to play in the world, right? And we have to be a leader to the world. And I'm curious, you're watching this destruction of public service generally in these last 6 weeks or so. What's your reaction been to this atmosphere we're in for public servants?
My reaction has been, it's only been 6 weeks.
Right.
It feels like a lifetime. And
Yeah.
honestly, if you look at what's happening, a lifetime of work is being dismantled in this short amount of time. I mean, listen, you know, I'll choose my words, rationally and thoughtfully. But what Donald Trump is doing right now is not for anybody's good. He's not doing anything for anybody's good. Donald Trump is a chaos agent and he likes to sow chaos and keep people divided, us versus them. And he is painting this picture that anybody within Washington, the DC area, anybody in the federal government is bad. So that's what he's doing. He's doing this as a chaos agent, not to create. Because even like if you look with the alleged so-called Doge, even with all the things that they're not saving any money. Like I saw a report that it's like $8 per family, is the amount of money that has been saved so far. Yeah, listen, if we want to save money and have those fiscal, discussions, then let's absolutely talk about ways that we can do that because I think everybody can agree that spending is out of control, and we do need to reel it in. Sure, let's have that discussion. But what the way that they're going about doing it now is very irresponsible to one as America's role in this world, in this nation, and in this world as a leader. Look at our allies in the months in the midst of 6 weeks. A lot of our allies have turned us into looking at us, hey, are they adversaries or are they actually our allies? So what Donald Trump is doing is sowing chaos and creating division, literally an us versus them mentality. And the ironic thing about it is, I mean, I'll use Alabama as an example. The largest employer in Alabama is the federal government. It's not just the inside the Beltway or DC, like people that are suffering all across the country, and those are just the employees of the state. Ohio, some place in the Midwest. A lot of these places have large federal government employee populations. And that's not even mentioning the people that are going to be affected by it. If you look in Oklahoma and North Dakota and in Kansas, some of these states that rely heavily on funding from the federal government about for cropping and agriculture, a lot of those people are going to be suffering. Shoot, we're already seeing it on a broader scale at the FAA. Like it's not just he's just trying to save money. He's a chaos agent that actually what he's doing has adverse effects to real life human beings. And that's the problem. It's not just you're fired, I'm taking your job. Okay. If they're doing that and they're saving money and they're still maintaining the effectiveness of these agencies, then sure, like, okay, maybe call it crazy, but it worked. But it's not. And not only is it not working, it's getting worse. And more people are going to be affected. And to put it plainly, people are going to die. But he doesn't care about anybody except himself.
And I'm curious, you spent the better part of 2024 running for office, which meant you were out there really talking to people and, you were getting a feel of the pulse. And obviously what Donald Trump and the MAGA movement have tapped into is there is an anger out there in the country, right?
Yeah.
There's a discontent. There's a sense that the world is getting away from people and a whole set of economic factors that play into that. And, it's definitely true that what Trump is doing is taking that anger, turning one group against the other, and weaponizing it and making it into, in some cases, it's racism, in some cases, it's against immigrants. And, we in the Jewish community worry about the anti-Semitism on the rise. I mean, there's just us against them being
Yeah.
fomented. But as you were out there listening to where people were at, what do you think the solutions are, right? I mean, if the
Yeah.
Democratic Party, it's one thing, we're all aware of just how horrible Trump is and what is happening to our country and our democracy, but we've got to be for something, right? As the
Yeah.
alternative. So I'm curious, as you did this campaign and you really had contact with people, and I think you've been traveling around the country to other districts as well
Yeah.
recently, and so I'm curious what some of the lessons are you're taking from the actual voter contact you had about what we need to be for.
Jeremy, you bring up a really great point. Donald Trump was able to tap into people's anger, right? Now let's talk about their anger is often, most of the time, more often than not, based on ignorance. They're angry about something that they don't know the truth about or what's really happening. I'll use January 6th as an example. People say, oh, they call it a Fed surrection in the MAGA world. They say, oh, it was orchestrated by Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump was trying to save the off. No, that's not accurate information. And their anger stems from misinformation. I don't even like calling it misinformation, it's lies.
Right.
Like misinformation is, hey, no, that's actually wrong. You misunderstood. It's not 8, it's actually 10. That's misinformation. Lying is what they're doing. They're out there saying, and I'm gonna jump all over the place because there's so many examples that you can use. But Donald Trump called Zelensky a dictator. Like that's a lie. That's not misinformation. Those are just flat out lies. So when we talk about the what is the cure for it, listen, I and when I was running, I had to learn how to be a politician. I'm just a public servant, which I believe that all of our elected officials should look at and should how they should be proceeding to do their job. I don't run, nobody should run for office because they think they know all the answers. They know how to fix everything. They know what to do in times like this. You run for office to represent people. My job is to give the people that elected me or would have elected me a voice in the halls of Congress. So that's why you need to be tapped into your constituents and you do what they want you to do, not what you want to do. Your job is to represent them. And I think a lot of elected officials have gotten away from that. And it's all about me, 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 me. And I think that's why, I was so drawn to running, which is crazy. I mean, who wants to be in public? Who wants to be in Congress, especially in this day and age, right? But I think it's really important that how do we fix this? It's not legislation that's going to fix this. It's not a protest. It's not a bill. It's not any virtue signaling. It's changing people's minds about what's happening. And you know what? I think through not Donald Trump's not even wanting to do this, he's changing a lot of people's minds right now by the policies that he's doing, and people that are being affected by it be like, wait, this isn't how it was supposed to go. So if I,
Are you hearing that? I mean, you're doing this traveling and out there for your pack, the new pack.
yeah,
We'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, are you hearing already that beginning of a backlash against this?
I'm hearing stories that, yeah, not, I mean, not to the point where it's saturated everybody, but there, I mean, shoot, just yesterday, I was just at the Capitol, and there was this officer who him and his sister, was big Trump supporters, um, but his sister was one of the people who lost her job in all of this. And she's like, wait a minute, this is terrible, and she's seeing, that alone is just There are thousands and thousands and thousands of stories like that, through unintended consequences of voting for Donald Trump and supporting this. So yes, I've heard stories. I've heard, like, I've been to Wisconsin. I'll actually be in Kansas this weekend. Just going out there speaking, continuing to push that, hey, this democracy is worth fighting for. Uh, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue to show up and encouraging people to do so. But yes, I've been hearing stories, like individual stories like that. Hey, this person voted for Trump, or his family is now, they're stuck in the border, but they were supposed to have, they did apply for asylum correctly. They did this, they did that, they did what they were supposed to do, and now they're suspending it all. And these people have been waiting, 2 or 3 years to do it correctly. And then, so a lot of people are going to have to find out the hard way, unfortunately, which leads me back to the point. A lot of truth and exposing education about what's going on and what is real, is what it's going to take. It's not going to, because we've been doing this for the beginning of democracy. Oh, this side is bad, that side is bad. But let's just actually tell the truth about what's actually happening. A lot of people don't know the truth. I think people want it. A lot of people just don't know it.
And what do you think? I mean, in terms of what is the root cause of this? I guess it's sort of a susceptibility that people have to these lies. I mean, it's fertile ground, right? It's not as if these lies are being forced down people's throats. They seem to be landing on receptive ears. Do you think that this is primarily economic? Do you think that it's a sense of I can't do as well as my parents did? I can't keep up the lifestyle that I thought I was going to have, and therefore I'm looking for other answers, and these sort of lies about what is causing it. It's all about foreign aid, or it's all about immigrants, or it's all about, LGBT and trans rights, that these kinds of lies as the way to like make people understand why life isn't what they thought it was going to be. Is it economic or is it something else? What's your read
I
on it?
don't know if it is economic. I think it's this, the world that we live in, this society is about instant gratification. And like, listen, you have people that are doing very well, like whether it be athletes or celebrities or personalities on podcasts that are millionaires and just by having somebody listen to them. Like,
Not on this podcast.
not on this, obviously. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it just, this is the world that we live in. And I think people see Elon Musk and say, this dude has more money than that a state can spend in a lifetime. A state of people. And people just want that. Is why can't I have that? Well, you know what? I'm not a billionaire because we gave $5 million to aid in Sudan or whatever, and people just see that. And I just think it's, they want to be rich, 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 and not realizing that, you know what? With that no aid is stopping anybody from being rich. There are opportunities that you have to, a lot, there's a lot of hard work and a lot of luck that goes into being in very successful spaces in time. Like, somebody said, "Yo, Harry, how did you get the platform that you have?" I didn't work for this. I didn't want it. I fell into this opportunity, not even opportunity. I fell into this moment and refused to step away from it. I begged my coworkers, I begged officers to join me in speaking out, and they didn't. So listen, like, there's a lot of times people have opportunities to do things and then to do it, but everybody wants that, look at like weight loss drugs. There's like, oh, I don't have to go to the gym. I could just get this shot. People just want to, listen, that's no judgment on that. People do what they need to do to make themselves healthy and happy. I support that 100%. But in this world where you can just do everything by bypassing hard work and just give me mine. Where's mine? And I feel like that's the world that we live in now. So yeah, it may be related to economics, but I also think that it's related to how people think that they are viewed by other people. People so care about image so much because that's what it's about. Like, everything is so vain in this world right now that we live in. And I don't know how we I wish I had an answer of how we
So
overcome it.
I mean, and one of the things that happened we saw in this election is that there was a greater percentage of young people in all communities, whether it's communities of color and other communities that were going for Trump, right? I mean, the young vote in the Obama era or in even 2020 for Joe Biden was not exactly the, most attractive candidate for youth, right? But
Yeah.
young people tended to vote more Democratic and more progressive, and we saw some retrenchment on that in 2024. Do you think it has a lot to do with that? I mean, is that what you're plugging into? Is it a
Yeah,
media issue? Is it social media? What do you attribute it to?
I think we need to do a better job of meeting people where they are. I have a friend of mine that recently became well, I don't want to give him the wrong title. He took the next step up in he was a judge. He's a judge, and I think he went from district or circuit to the next one up in his investiture. And in his speech, in his acceptance, he said that when people come in his courtroom, whether they are they admitted to being guilty or they're not, there are three things that they want. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be respected. And I feel like a lot of people don't feel heard, they don't feel respected, they don't feel seen. So they go to these spaces where, you know what, I'll go for the person who is like me. And I think they got it. We definitely got it wrong. Obviously we got it wrong this election. Like Kamala Harris is literally the person that is more relatable than Donald Trump is to anybody else. So America got it wrong. Or and this is, unpopular take, or maybe America got it right. And we just have to stop thinking that America is this nation that will stand on the principles of what's right, stand up for other people. Maybe we just have to acknowledge maybe that isn't America. Maybe I'll never stop fighting for that America. That's what I want. That's what I desire. That's what I believe that we should aspire to be. But maybe we have to stop pretending that America is this nation that rejects violence, that rejects hate towards people, to groups of people, ethnicities, races. We have to we have to acknowledge maybe this is the country that we live in. But I digress. But talking about how do we have to meet people. We have to, hey, I didn't start caring about Medicaid and Social Security until, I mean, right now it doesn't affect me until I saw my parents, what they had to go through to get it. I didn't need prescription drugs at the age of 23, so I didn't care what the price was. I'm healthy. So, yeah, so making people realize how things affect them, I think is important. Hey, why does it matter to me? I don't care what the cost of insulin is. I don't have diabetes, but making people understand how policies, absolutely everything that's done is going to affect people. Like, which is what is funny. Like, I get out there and I talk to people. I don't really do politics. I don't. Well, politics does you. Whether you do it or not, it's going to dictate what you can and cannot do. And I think the goal is what we need to do is educating people. Goes back to education, how things affect them directly.
So we're having a conversation with Harry Dunn, the former Capitol policeman from the January 6th fame, and who ran for Congress here in Maryland in 2024. And Harry, I want to find out a little bit more about your PAC. I understand that you've started this PAC. What's it about? What's it for? What's your goal with it?
So yeah, it's so funny because if people see me as this, I won't say expert. Well, some people have called me an expert before. I am a novice to what's going on. There's no roadmap for the times we're facing right now. There is no, hey, we've dealt with this before. This is how we overcome it. This is how we achieve it. I- I'm figuring this out as I go. I am just but I can't do nothing. So I'm like, okay, I lost my election. How do I? There are people out there like me that we can still elect, and we need fighters. We need people that believe in democracy, that want to stand up. And that's what my pack was about. It's about standing up for Harry Dunn's Democracy Defenders Pack. So people that want to defend democracy, and also with the caveat of people um, getting big special interest groups and money out of elections, Citizens United, and that going down that rabbit hole. So that was one of the two of the pillars of which I started my pack. But I just want to continue to be helpful. And like I immediately I thought of Michigan. Michigan, is considered a swing state and blah blah blah. But when it went for the president, but Alyssa Slotkin, who I endorsed in the House, won down ballot in a state that went for the president, went for Donald Trump. So I think there are opportunities where we can find, hey, how do we hold on to this? Or the Senate race in Arizona. I endorsed Ruben Gallego, and Arizona went for Donald Trump, but the state of Arizona went for Democrat Ruben Gallego. So I think that kind of stuff we need to invest in those type of candidates, and focus on going forward in the midterms. Not even the midterms. Not even the midterms. I mean, I mentioned earlier I was in Wisconsin. There's a Supreme Court election in the state on April the
Exactly.
1st in
Right.
Wisconsin, and I've been out there. There's a guy that Elon Musk is backing, and that alone should tell you where this guy's stance is if Elon Musk is backing you. So, I think there's a lot of opportunities for people to put in work, and people just don't know. So I'm just continuing to do my part, by starting my pack to support candidates. Because when I ran, I understand that I learned that it does take support, it does take messaging, and it costs money. Unfortunately, it costs money. And that's one of the things we don't like talking about. Funny story. My father, when I was running for office, my father would tell me, he said, "Son, I love you, but if you call me one more time asking for money, I'm going." He was getting the automated text,
The
the
robocalls, right, right.
robocalls,
Yeah,
and he was like, "Son, if you text me one more time, like,
that's
this is
great.
my own dad." I said, "I'm
Yeah.
sorry." But
Well,
people
it's
like,
interesting, you mentioned Alyssa Slotkin, and by the way, she's going to be delivering the Democratic response on the State of the Union on Tuesday.
that's why she came to mind because I saw that. I think that's a great
Yeah,
choice right there.
exactly. And Alyssa was in Iraq, and she has a huge career prior to elective office of public service. And Ruben Gallego, same thing. I mean, a very significant career
Yeah,
in public service. And I just, again, relating to you, your service. I think there's a respect in America for public service, and I watch what Trump and Musk and this Doge work and the utter disregard and disrespect for millions and millions, probably tens of millions of people between veterans and people who've retired from public service. I mean, tens of millions of people in this country have worked for this country, for the public good, right?
yeah,
And often not being compensated the way they would have been if they'd gone into the private sector. I mean, people could have had a different career and a different life, but they chose to actually serve. And I think that using Alyssa, using Ruben, yourself, these are the types of people we have to put forward to counter this kleptocracy, this like
yeah.
culture of rich folks who are only out to help themselves with huge tax cuts. And we need to put forward a face of public service.
Yeah, you know what? What it does is it gives their message, our voice, credibility. I was a police officer for 16 years almost 16 years before I left the department. So my 16 years of being a cop, especially at the United States Capitol, going through an insurrection, that gives me a little bit of credibility to speak on, you know, whatever issue or whatever, whether it be democracy, public safety, whatever. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to out here talk about medical decisions.
Yeah.
Let's have our doctors get out there and talk about those issues. But one thing that you notice, we'll do the work, public service. We don't do it to receive accolades, like you said, compensation. We don't do it. We do it because it's the right thing to do. What we do need from people is their support, because we're not going to be out here seeking, this and that. We'll defend ourselves, we'll defend people, but we need people defending us. And I think a lot of times I've gotten strength, like people. It's been 4 years and it hasn't been easy at all. It's been, not even not has it not just been easy. It's been hard. It's been hard. It's been lonely. It's been a tough road and world to navigate, because people, even the people that support me the most, I don't know, they can't relate to how I'm feeling. They don't know what it's like to open your inbox on Twitter and the first thing you say is, "N word, I hope you die," or Donald Trump's going to have you hung. Like nobody can really. I mean, there are people that can relate to it on other levels, sure. Obviously, with when we're talking about religious hate and stuff like that and racial hate, sure. But there are not many people that can relate to it. So it's hard. So when people show their support to me, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel encouraged. Like, you know what? There are people that support me. And I use this example a lot. Just say you got a new haircut or you got some new glasses on or some new shoes, and everybody, oh man, I like your shoes. Oh, those are nice. Like, oh, where did you get those from? You talk to 9 or 10 people, and then that one person, yeah, you wore those. Those are ugly. And you only think about that one
The
person.
one, right?
The other 10 people that
Right.
just said that you're amazing and those shoes are great, you only think about that one person. And that's being human. And I think we need to get away. We need to start working with people or surrounding ourselves with people who are supportive of us. And I'm not saying being an echo chamber, no, because an echo chamber is not somebody that doesn't want to hear criticisms or way to do things better, but people that are actually genuinely supportive of you. And I think that's where the human side of it takes shape.
Well, I mean, speaking of supportive, J Street was really pleased to support you in your run,
Yeah.
and we represent a part of the Jewish community that, uh, I think our values is what we lead with, right? And our desire to support, you know, based on our own history as a people of the things that we have been through. It's really important to us to stand up against racism and to stand up against misogyny and to stand up against all forms of oppression and discrimination. That's sort of
Yeah.
built into the DNA of a large part of the Jewish community. Not all, obviously. I mean, there's
Yes.
divisions in every community, but
Yeah.
that's the part that J Street is, and our mantra is that we got into this because we care about Israel and we want there to be peace between Israel and Palestinians, and we think Palestinians shouldn't be treated badly by the people in power in Israel, and that's sort of our ethos. And then we bring it back to this country and we say, well, if those are our values, that we apply over there, same thing here, right? We need to support democracy, we need to support equality and justice and freedom and all of that. And that's where you're going to find support in our community. And we were proud to support you.
Thank
I'm
you.
curious, just drilling in on that, there's a couple of questions in the Q&A that go right to the issue of racism. And, to what extent do you think that some of what we see with Trump, is it and MAGA and that whole movement, is it driven by, I was talking about economic issues earlier, but, do you think that racism is playing a big part? I think there was one question here about the firing of the chair of the Joint Chiefs, and Helene Cooper, who you may know was formerly a correspondent at the New York Times. Maybe she's
Yeah.
at the New York Times, and she covers the Pentagon. And she was arguing that this was purely racism. And then there's a question about whether or not some of the results of the past election, did that really actually at its root flow from that? So I'm curious your perspective on.
Yeah. Well, the answer is yes. Racism, misogyny definitely played a part of it. I mean, Kamala Harris had it both going against her, the misogynistic people and the racist people. There are people that are never woman's going to lead me, and there are people that are black people or minorities are not going to represent me, or we're not equal. So yes, they exist. But I like to use metaphors because I feel like it explains it just a little bit better. And I've been thinking about this one, but this is the first time I've actually said it. So, if it lands funny, blame it on that. But um, listen, I view politician or Donald Trump using racism as an accelerant to a fire, right? So you build a fire, the accelerant doesn't keep the fire burning. It helps it get it going. And the wood and the is what keeps your fire going. But you throw a little bit of racism on that fire, and that fire, woof, it's gonna grow and eventually it comes back down. And if the fire starts to go out a little bit, you throw a bunch of little racism on it, a little misogyny on it, and woof, it goes. So it has racist, and I'm talking, it has value when it comes to people like Donald Trump, who only believe in sowing division, hate. I never met the man. I would call him a racist. I never met the man, or I just know what's reported and stuff like that. I don't know how he treats black people, in his private life. But I'd make an educated guess and say that he's a racist. But just use it like that. They think the firing of the DEI, getting rid of it, is throwing an accelerant on the fire that's already burning. Woof, and it keeps the fire. But that's not what keeps the fire burning. But it's what keeps it from going out. And I think that's what this MAGA movement is about. When they talk about keep the fire from going out, it's about keeping white people from becoming a minority and not existing anymore. And, people wanting to make black and brown people equal, and women equal. And I think that erasing DEI and firing black people is literally like throwing gasoline on a fire just to keep it exploding, but that's not what keeps the fire going. Like, you can't continue to run your messaging just racism, 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 but racism and throwing that on the fire will help get people's attention to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we deal with this with anti-Semitism as well. I mean, not to extend the metaphor too far, but these embers are always burning, right? I mean,
Always, always.
it's not, and you probably can't put it out. I mean, I don't think there's a solution. I think this is sort of built into the human DNA that there's got to
Yes.
be somebody that you don't like who's not like you. I mean, that's like seems to be a part of our makeup as human beings. So it's always going to be there, and people who are a little different from the main population of any country, and this applies all around the world to everybody who looks like anybody, right? It's like
Yeah.
nothing specific to one particular type of discrimination. It just is human nature. And so we have to do our best to educate, as you said, and try to help people see, the positives in everyone and the benefits to society if we're all in this together and building something better together. So I really appreciate I appreciate your metaphor, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Well, thank you, thank you. I feel like that works though, because yeah, like you said, those embers are always going to burn. But if you want to make it flare, throw a bit of racism on there, throw anti-Semitism on there, throw some sexism on there. Poof. Okay, the fire is burning again, so let's throw a little bit of wood
Yeah.
on there and let's go. So, and I think that's what they're doing to keep it from going out. You
And
know?
meanwhile, we have real problems, actual problems that we have to address. And all those fires distract everyone from actually the problems. The fire that's burning is our planet, right? I mean, we've got to do
Yeah,
something about saving our planet, right? And we've got all these other tremendous challenges ahead of us with public health and the pandemics that are brewing, and all of the other economic displacement that's coming from IT. And so there's all these other problems, but everybody distracts from the actual problems by, causing these fires to burst up.
absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. And then that's the thing. We have real problems going on, and the people that are actually the best leaders right now are those people trying to solve those problems. Unfortunately, none of those problems are going to be solved right now. I think we need to make people's expectations real. Uh, Codifying women's rights or Roe v. Wade is not happening in the next 4 years. Significant gun reform is not going to happen. Hate and Asian Pacific Islander hate, it's not going to be past this term. Nothing meaningful. These real problems are going to be addressed right now. So what we're doing, we're literally in the middle of an ocean and we're treading water for as long as we can, for at least for the next 4 years. Um, and no boats looking for us. There's no helicopter. The Coast Guard isn't looking for us right now, and we have to lean on each other and support each other to get through these times right now. Because definitely the people in charge don't really, to be sorry, don't give a damn.
well, Harry Dunn, thank you so much for being a voice of sanity and reason and leadership in the midst of all of this ocean of craziness that we've got. And we will keep on treading water here, and we're going to make it, and we're going to have a real chance in 26 and 28 to reverse some of this. And then there's a lot of good we can do, and people like you in public life and being a part of that is part of the answer to all the problems that we have. So I thank you. J Street really values our friendship and our partnership with you, and look forward to continuing that.
Thank you so much. I really look forward to thank you for you giving me the platform and wanting to hear what I have to say. Thank you to everybody listening right now and all your support. It really means a lot to me. And You know, I will say I don't like to tell people everything's going to be okay. I think it's a little condescending to people when you say, "Hey, it's going to be okay," because we don't know if it is. I will tell you that I'm going to fight with everything I have left in me to make sure that we make it okay. And hopefully that'll be enough, you know.
Absolutely. The only way that we definitely lose is if we give up the fight. That's the one thing, and that's what they
That's the one.
want us to,
Absolutely.
they want us to walk out of the arena and give up. And that's the only way for sure you lose. You got to stay on the field and play and give yourself a chance and do everything you can to win. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I
all
use
right.
that. I use that as a when I play the Mega Millions. I'll say, you look, the only way you're not going to win is if you don't play. So,
My father-in-law said the same thing. It's like,
no, well, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate
all
it.
right. Very much appreciated. Thank you to everybody for signing in. And please do sign up for Word on the Street. And we look forward to seeing you at the next conversation. All the best. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.